Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Emotion Regulation Group for Justice Involved Clients with Developmental Disabilities. My name is Anne. I am joined by my colleague Ian, and we will be your moderators for this session. Before we get started, I will review some quick housekeeping notes, and then I will introduce our speakers and begin the session. I would like to draw your attention to the bottom of your screen. You can use the chat feature to submit questions. Please type "question" in all caps in the chat before your question to make it easier for us to find them. The presenters will be taking questions at the end of their presentation. We will do our best to ask as many questions as we can during the time we have. Please ensure your microphone is on mute until the Q&A portion of this session. Please note that we will be recording this session to upload to our conference website for future viewing by those who have registered for the conference. You will be able to access the platform for 90 days following the conference. We kindly ask that you complete a short evaluation at the end of this session. Your feedback is appreciated and will be used to inform future events such as this conference. Lastly, we would like to respectfully ask all those attending today's session to engage with each other thoughtfully and always consider the impact of your words and interactions on others. As moderators, we will not tolerate abusive or inappropriate behavior and will ensure that everyone who engages in such behavior is removed from this session. I would now like to introduce our presenters for this session, Casey and Melissa from Surrey Place. Over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining our presentation today. We'll be talking about the Emotion Regulation Group for Justice-Involved Clients with Developmental Disabilities. Thank you, Casey. So we'll quickly start by reviewing the agenda. So we will introduce ourselves and define what an intellectual disability is. We'll discuss the rationale and goals of our Emotion Regulation Group. We'll give an overview of DBT, as well as explain why it needs to be adapted for individuals with intellectual disability. We'll review our program evaluation results and next steps. And finally, we'll leave time for questions and answers at the end.
All right. Hi there, everyone. My name is Casey Fulford. I am a clinical psychologist in the adult program at Surrey Place. So I work with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and I conduct psychological assessments as well as individual and group therapy. Unfortunately, our second presenter, Christina DeBose, was unable to attend today, but we did want to introduce her as well. So she is a dual diagnosis and justice coordinator from the community of networks of specialized care, as well as works at Surrey Place, and she is in the Toronto region of CNSC. So Christina supports adults with developmental disabilities who are justice involved. She collaborates with justice authorities, including police, probation, court supports, hospitals, and correction services within Toronto and Ontario.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. And I am Melissa McMillan. I'm a developmental justice case manager with the Downtown East Justice Center pilot project, and I also work at Surrey Place. We'll get more into what the Justice Center is in the coming slides, but essentially I support individuals in the Justice Center who either have or are believed to have an intellectual disability. And my role is to support them from when they're released from custody and into the community, assisting them with attending court and achieving their goals. We create plans unique to the individual to ensure their personal needs are being met. And our ultimate hope is that in the Justice Center is to ensure individuals are supported and reduce their recidivism. Perfect, thank you. So we'll start by introducing Surrey Place. So Surrey Place is a not-for-profit organization that serves people of all ages with developmental disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, and visual impairments in the Toronto region and Northwestern Ontario. Surrey Place provides specialized clinical services to individuals across their lifespan, from infancy to adult and elder years. and Surrey Place has 5 locations across Toronto. Our comprehensive programs and services range from assessment to diagnosis, one-on-one treatment, family counseling, and group support, and is provided by a broad network of clinicians and professionals. Some of the services we offer include occupational therapy, behavior therapy, psychology, nursing, psychiatry, and clinics. Next, we'll just touch on the DSO. So DSO stands for Developmental Services Ontario, and it's the access point for adult developmental services funded by the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, MCCSS, in Ontario. There are 9 DSO agencies located across the province, serving different counties and regions. Surrey Place is the DSO Toronto Region service provider. To be considered eligible, individuals must be 18 years or older, live in Ontario, and have a confirmed diagnosis. And some of the funded services may include housing supports, case management, respite services, community participation, and the passport program. Next, we'll talk about CNSC, which is where Christina and I are a part of, and that is the Community Networks of Specialized Care. And it serves adults living with a developmental disability who meet eligibility criteria for DSO and who have extraordinary medical or behavioral needs. CNSC works towards enhancing complex support coordination, developing cross-sector collaborations, and by improving community planning. There are 8 CNSC agencies across the province, serving as accountable agencies to MCCSS for funding, coordinating, and overseeing the delivery of their 4 functions. And referrals to the CNSC Toronto region can be made by contacting DSO. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about the Downtown East Justice Center where I work. So yesterday we had Randy Schwartz, the Assistant Deputy Attorney General with the Ministry of the Attorney General, who gave a brief overview of Ontario's justice centers. And then this morning we heard from Miriam Henry, who's the Assistant Crown Attorney in the Toronto Northwest Justice Center. She gave an excellent explanation of justice centers. And since 2020, Surrey Place has partnered with the Ontario Court of Justice, Ministry of the Attorney General, and the City of Toronto to innovate how justice is delivered to our most vulnerable populations by moving justice out of the traditional courtroom and into a community setting. The pilot focuses on preventing high-needs individuals at the intersection of poverty, homelessness, isolation, mental health, and addictions from cycling through the criminal justice system by addressing their criminogenic risk factors with wraparound psychiatric, primary care, and addictions medicine, as well as developmental disability supports. Surrey Place being included in this Justice Center pilot project is incredibly important, as until now, developmental services haven't really been included in the criminal justice system. Previously, individuals with intellectual disability have been lumped in with individuals with mental health and addictions, and they haven't really received the appropriate support for their needs. So clients with intellectual disability are now recognized at the Justice Center and are receiving the support they need to be successful in the community. Surrey Place, along with the Justice Center's other partner, Sound Times, provides specialized case management supports at the Downtown East Justice Center Court for people with developmental disabilities, brain injuries, mental health and addiction concerns, with low to moderate level offenses. And the goal of the Justice Center is to reduce jail time and recidivism rates while supporting people and connecting them to services. A couple of the services we offer at the Downtown East Justice Center include supports through DSO, drop-in mental health and substance use services. We have a community victim support worker. We could do employment training. There's a lot that we offer. And it's important to note that the funding for our emotion regulation group came from the Downtown East Justice Center in the City of Toronto. So we thank them for giving us this opportunity to run our group.
Great, thanks so much, Melissa. So now getting into the meat of the presentation, we're going to be discussing an emotion regulation group that we ran for adults with intellectual disability who are justice involved. So we want to, went back a slide. Okay. We want to make sure that you have a good understanding of the population that we do support. So adults with intellectual, I don't know why my computer is now switching back. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so individuals with intellectual disability have support needs in both intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior. So intellectual functioning, also might be called intelligence or IQ, refers to one's general mental capacity, such as learning, reasoning, and problem solving. And so adaptive functioning, or you might hear the term adaptive behavior, refers to conceptual, social, and practical skills that a person needs to manage the demands of everyday life. So areas of adaptive functioning that are affected to varying degrees in persons with intellectual disability include self-care abilities such as hygiene. It can impact language and communication, social skills, as well as skills for independent living, such as being able to go grocery shopping or cooking on your own, managing money, and traveling around the community. So there are 4 levels of intellectual disability, and you might hear us use the term ID to describe intellectual disability. So mild, moderate, severe, and profound. And these reflect a person's level of support needs. So people with mild intellectual disability have lower support needs, and people with profound ID have the highest level of support needs. And we've included general guidelines for age equivalents of where these individuals' abilities may lie. So adults with ID in the mild range might be functioning around the 9 to 12 year age equivalent. Again, this is a guideline. It can vary from person to person, and they might have really strong skills in one area and need more help in another area. But that's just our general overview of intellectual disability. Okay, Melissa. Oh, sorry, I don't know what's happening with my mouse. I'm going to just hold it.
Thank you. So next we'll discuss the rationale for our emotion regulation group for justice-involved clients with intellectual disability. So individuals with ID in the justice system require adapted mental health supports. And at this present time, adapted resources specific to this population are limited. When appropriate resources are available, access is limited due to long wait lists for ministry-funded programs, and fee-for-service support such as psychotherapy or direct counseling is difficult to attain for clients with ID, as they often don't have private insurance or the means to pay for it on their own. Surrey Place provides clinical services to adults who are eligible for developmental services in Toronto, and we recognize that there was a gap in service for this population. So the existing groups that target anger management and emotion regulation that we were aware of in Toronto are not tailored or appropriate for individuals with intellectual disability. As a result, we used an adapted evidence-based emotion regulation program for adults with intellectual disability to support justice-involved clients. We also conducted program evaluation to assess the feasibility and implementation, which we will be discussing today. So the goals for our emotion regulation group, they were to provide support to a marginalized and vulnerable population with complex needs who are commonly overrepresented in the justice system. Many charges for this population relate to difficulties with emotion regulation. So for example, maybe minor assaults or verbal threats. And by teaching skills to cope with distress and regulate emotions, we aim to reduce recidivism rates for adults with intellectual disability. Engagement in the program would ideally lead to forms of alternative justice, and we hope to reduce the individual's risk of a criminal conviction or a need for a trial.
All right, so we used an adapted dialectical behavior therapy curriculum for our emotion regulation group. And you might also hear us refer to dialectical behavior therapy as DBT throughout the presentation. So DBT is a form of group therapy with additional individual support for clients in between group sessions. It's a very interesting model that we don't have enough time to go into today. It's quite unique. Sorry, hold on one second. Compared to some other therapeutic modalities. So it was developed by Dr. Marsha Linehan, who's a psychologist, and it was aimed at supporting individuals with borderline personality disorder. However, over the years, research has shown that DBT is effective for supporting a number of other populations who have difficulty with emotion regulation, including adults with intellectual disability. So in DBT, people are taught two seemingly opposite strategies. So we work on acceptance, so accepting that one's experiences and behaviors are valid, and also focusing on change. So we need to make positive changes to manage emotions and move forward. All right, so in DBT, there are 4 categories of skills that are taught to clients. So we have emotion regulation. So this is the ability to recognize and manage intense emotions so that our emotions do not get to the point of controlling our behaviors. Distress tolerance, the ability to cope during crisis and distressing situations, particularly when we can't change the outcome. And we need to accept this situation as it is rather than how we think it should be. And then we are also focusing on interpersonal effectiveness. So this is really relationship skills. We focus on communication and assertiveness skills. For example, working on the ability to ask another person for what they need, but also being able to say no when necessary while maintaining healthy relationships. And then the last category of skills is mindfulness. So this skill helps one pay attention to the present moment and work to accept what is. And we'll actually be doing a mindfulness exercise in a little bit. All right, so individuals with intellectual disability have high rates of co-occurring mental health diagnoses and emotion dysregulation. There's evidence that group-based psychotherapy can be effective for our population. However, the original DBT curriculum posed challenges for adults with intellectual disability. I swear I didn't have a cough until 5 minutes before this presentation started, but sorry about that. So some of the challenges that the original DBT curriculum posed was that there are a lot of complex terms and abstract language, which were hard for our population to understand. There's a lack of consistent lesson structure. So the original DBT program is pretty flexible, which can be great for some clients, but our population and our clients really need a lot of repetition and structure to facilitate their understanding and ability to retain information. There were also a lot of different skills in the original manual, and we knew we had to pare it down to just a few core skills for our clients to remember and be able to apply in everyday life. As well as there isn't a lot of guidance for when to actually use the different skills in terms of if one's at a high emotional intensity versus a low emotional intensity. So we needed to get really specific with our clients about when, like, practical application for using the skills. So the content and teaching methods needed to be adapted to clients' learning styles and needs. And as mentioned earlier, we're working with clients with intellectual disability, primarily in the mild range. So an age equivalent of, say, up to 12 years old, but could be lower as, grade 3 level of reading and writing, for example. All right. So we used the emotion regulation skill system for cognitively challenged clients, which was developed by Julie Brown. And I can see that Shaylee actually included the skill system link in the chat. So that if you want to click on that and check out the program more, you can access it there. And so the curriculum focuses on learning 9 skills, and these skills build on each other and are reviewed each week before learning a new skill. So we're having a lot of repetition. We're doing reviews, almost like quizzing about the different skills, so they're really ingrained into our clients' minds. And so we just included a couple examples from the Skills System website in terms of the content of the material we used in the group. So you'll see on the left, there's the feelings rating scale, which is a visual scale for clients to rate the intensity of their emotions. And so that pairing of the numbers, the visual, and the written description is really helpful for facilitating clients' comprehension and be able to think about how to apply the feeling rating scale to their current situation and how they're feeling. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see the clear picture, which is a mindfulness activity in which clients pay attention to the present moment by noticing their 5 senses. So we have seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching. Okay, so as mentioned, we are going to do a mindfulness exercise. I know that on the conference platform, there's a 24-minute mindfulness exercise available. So I don't know, some of you may have already done it. I promise ours will be quite a bit shorter. So if you have difficulty focusing, it'll be easier. And for those of you who haven't done mindfulness before, we invite you to participate, no pressure, but we wanted to give you a sense of what the kind of activities that our clients were doing in session looked like. And so just a heads up, we will be asking you a couple of questions after about your experience. So for this exercise, you can choose to close your eyes if you're comfortable with it. And I can't see who's actually on camera, but if you're on camera and you rather do this exercise off camera, feel free to turn off your camera. And if you don't want to close your eyes, you can keep them open. I just ask that you look down at something, not the computer screen, maybe even turn away so you're not distracted by what's going on the screen. And so for some people, it can be helpful to sit up straight in your chair if that's comfortable for you, but ultimately do what is best for your body. So I want you to just start by paying close attention to how your breath feels. So just start by taking a few breaths. You don't have to change the way you're breathing. Just start by noticing it as you breathe in and out. Noticing how the air feels either inside your nostrils or in your mouth. You might notice that the temperature of the air is different as you breathe in versus out. Maybe not. If you don't notice a difference, that's okay too. If you are breathing through your nostrils, you may notice it, the air moving more easily through one nostril than the other. Just notice the air when you breathe in and out. And it can be helpful to put a finger under your nose or in front of your mouth to actually feel the air and draw your attention there. If you start thinking about something else, just notice that and gently bring your thoughts back to your breath. Every time you bring your attention back to the breath, you are practicing mindfulness. Now I want you to pay attention to what your body feels like when you breathe inside your belly and your chest. So it might be helpful to place one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And just notice what happens as you breathe in and out. Notice the chest rising and falling. You might also notice the belly expanding and deflating. Try paying attention to the whole breath. Breathing in, air going through your nostrils or mouth, chest rising, belly expanding. And feel the air releasing out of your body as you breathe out. Try focusing on the beginning and ends of the breath, noticing when it starts and finishes. try counting 3 breaths and paying attention to the start and end of each breath. All right, so that brings us to the end of the practice. If your eyes are closed, you can open them when you feel ready. And so we do have our first poll question for you. I see that Ian's brought that up. So if you could just let us know if you felt your mind wandering, or did you get distracted by other thoughts? No judgment, we want the truth. And if you did get distracted, were you able to bring your attention back to your breathing? So when you finish those, we'll give you just another 30 seconds to answer those. And then we will take a look at what your responses were. And I think the responses, Ian, when the responses stop coming in, then is that something that you can show it for us all to see?
I actually don't see the function to share. And do you see that function? I'm not sure if they built that in. If not, I can verbally share it when you're ready.
Verbal's good too. That sounds great.
Yeah, so we have about 76% of people responding. And on the first question, 90% mentioned that their mind did wander and get distracted by other thoughts, and 10% did not. And the second question, if you got distracted, was 90%. And they were able to bring their attention back, and 10% they weren't able to.
Okay, thank you so much. Very, very nice, everyone. Thanks for responding, and Ian, thanks for sharing that with us. I really appreciate everyone's willingness to try that exercise and respond. So it's really typical that your mind will wander during a mindfulness practice. I personally don't think I've ever not had my mind wander. So I'm very impressed when people are able to stay focused the whole time. We all have different abilities in that area. But mindfulness is all about what you're noticing what you're attending to and focusing your attention. So really that skill of noticing when you've gotten distracted and redirecting back is training your brain really to focus on the here and now. And so I don't have time for a full discussion, but I just was wondering in the chat, if people are comfortable sharing, I'm wondering how you think practicing mindfulness skills could help our clients who are justice involved and have difficulty with emotion regulation. How might mindfulness practices like this be helpful for regulating emotions in everyday life? And if you're willing, just to put that in the chat, I'd love to hear people's ideas if you have any. And I'll give you a minute in case it takes a second to think. All right, so Marnie, yes, helps them to calm and focus on the moment. Right, when we're, feeling really emotional, we might get so caught up in our distressing thoughts, and mindfulness can bring us back on the present moment. Okay, we have a lot of great ideas. Reorienting, calming the body, for sure. Our mind and body are so connected. Just giving, a moment of pause and reflection. Breathing exercises are great because we always have our breath with us, for sure. All right, and it can slow things down. Yeah, a lot of times our clients who have charges, it's because they reacted impulsively. So if we can slow things down and ground ourselves, I love all these comments, then that can maybe introduce that pause and give us a chance to maybe make a different decision, maybe walk away from the situation instead of yelling at someone, for example. All right. And yes, I think mindfulness is important for everyone and helps with balance throughout the day. Thanks, Maureen. I agree. This is something that I'm constantly working on with more and less success depending on the day. But I agree. It's not just for our clients who are justice involved. This is a skill that I think we could all use sometimes. So thank you so much to everyone for participating in that. All right, so we're going to switch to the next slide. All right, so the adapted DBT the program that we used has a number of adaptations from the original DBT manual. So there are many visuals. We use lots of pictures, introduced videos using PowerPoint, had whiteboards to write on. So tried to make it as visual as possible, not just relying on that verbal information. We used accessible or more simple language around the grade 3 level, as I mentioned. We had quite a high ratio of facilitators to participants. And we did have a client, for example, that was not able to read. So we helped them with reading handouts out loud and things like that. We also had a separate room that we had booked for every session, that if any of our participants or group members didn't, feel dysregulated or need a moment to themselves or with their one-on-one coach, we could step out of the room with them. And we really focused on practical and concrete strategies rather than theoretical concepts. So just taking those practical applied strategies from DBT. A lot of repetition and a consistent structure each session. All right, Melissa.
Okay, thank you, Casey. That was great mindfulness practice, so thank you for that. And now we'll discuss our DBT group details. So our group ran for 12 weeks in the spring of 2023. The group convened at Surrey Place in person for 90 minutes, and each group had a 15-minute break halfway through. Each participant also met one-on-one for up to half an hour with one of the group facilitators in between sessions. And the purpose of the individual session was to support the homework assignments and problem solving related to skills development. We did have some incentives for attendance, so we gave out TTC tickets. And for those of you who are outside of Toronto, those are our public transit tickets, along with gift cards at the 6-week and 12-week mark. And upon completion, each client was provided with a letter for the courts to note that they completed the program. Program evaluation. So just to review our client information, we conducted program evaluation to assess the feasibility and implementation of the adapted DBT group. We had 6 participants, which were recruited both from the Downtown East Justice Centre Court where I work and the Community Network of Specialized Care Toronto Region through Christina. One participant was unable to attend due to anxiety, and a second dropped out after attending one session due to being homeless and experiencing addiction, which made attending group next to impossible for them. So therefore, we had 4 clients complete the group. All clients had intellectual disability and had matters before the court. In terms of gender, there were 3 men and 1 woman, and the age range was from 36 to 60 years old. So our behavioral data was collected in group sessions. We had at least 75% attendance rate, so 9 out of our 12 sessions for clients that completed the group. The 4 participants maintained consistent attendance and homework completion and complied with the behavioral expectations of the group. When participants were present, most of them consistently attended and oriented to the group, engaged in class discussion, and followed class instruction and group rules.
All right, so for outcome monitoring, we use the difficulties in emotion regulation scale, or it's also known as the DIRS. So this is a 36-item self-report measure about how clients relate to their emotions. And so this measure is actually freely available online if you do want to check it out. We administered it prior to the group beginning. So week 1, the first thing we did in group, and then after the group was completed at week 12. And we were looking to assess the change in clients' ability to regulate their emotions after learning DBT skills. And we read the items out loud to the participants just to, mitigate any reading difficulties. And we also explained definitions of words that were more complex or answered any questions that they had. So the questionnaire uses a scale from 1 to 5 and helps us understand clients' difficulties with different areas, including non-acceptance of emotion response, difficulty in engaging in goal-directed behavior, lack of emotional awareness, impulse control difficulties, limited access to emotion regulation strategies, and lack of emotional clarity. So those are all subscales on the DIRS. All right, so the overall DIRS scale showed a slight improvement in emotion regulation. We cannot oh my gosh, I'm struggling. Okay, sorry. We cannot claim significant results. As we noted, we only had 4 participants who completed the group. However, the initial results are promising, and we are continuing to collect data in future groups so we can make more claims about the effectiveness of these groups. So there was indication of improved emotion regulation skills on 4 of the subscales. So they were slightly better at engaging in goal-directed behavior, had slightly better ability to control their impulses, slightly increased emotional clarity, and slightly increased emotional awareness. And again, I'm really giving that slightly caveat every time because I can't comment on significance with this small sample size. But interestingly, participants also indicated some more challenges with emotion regulation on 2 of the DIRS subscales. So there was slightly more difficulty accepting their emotion response and slightly less access to emotion regulation strategies, which surprised us because that's what we're focusing on in the group. But we also do wonder if clients had some difficulty understanding the content of the DIRS. So even though we did read it out loud, we did describe information, anything that they didn't understand. It did sort of seem to us from our perspective that clients had some difficulty comprehending questions and might not have been answering consistently. Or, if there was a double negative on a word or on an item, then like if they were consistently sort of saying, yes, this is helpful, then if it was inverse scored, they might have, just continued with that response option on the very right-hand side, for example. So this is something we're going to be exploring, but is a limitation of our data. And yeah, we're continuing to run DBT groups so that we can really get a better sense of these outcome measures.
Awesome. So we got some positive feedback from clients about engaging in the group. Some of their feedback included the program could be longer. So this was because they enjoyed attending on a weekly basis. I feel like this program helped me. I got mad and I realized, indicating more awareness of their emotions. And the breathing exercises were helpful. So this is referring to activities like the mindfulness breathing exercise we did with you earlier. Completion letters were written for each individual and provided to the court. So the court has recognized this DBT group as a form of emotion regulation therapy for individuals with intellectual disability. And they also provided us with some positive feedback. The group has assisted individuals with reducing their charges. So for example, maybe what would have been a custodial sentence, a couple of clients had the following outcomes, which were charges withdrawn, charges stayed, and probation or peace bond instead of jail time. So overall, reduced sentence at the end of the day.
All right, so what worked from the group? So presentations and handouts with lots of visuals was very helpful. Using accessible language, having concrete practical strategies that could really be easily remembered and practiced, like that clear picture one we showed. I thought that was one that our group members really took to. Having interactive discussions with the clients, so not just making it didactic, but making sure that we were really applying it to their own lives. The mindfulness techniques resonated with a number of the clients. Doing the group in person rather than online. A number of our clients don't have access to the technology where they could participate online. And they also commented on really enjoying having that structure in their days, an outing almost. Also providing the transit tickets to participants so that they could commute was helpful, because the expense could be prohibitive for some clients who don't work or who aren't in supported who are in supported living situations. So next steps. So using the Julie Brown manual, the skill system that we talked about earlier, we had mixed results on the outcome measure, as we noted, but we also just had some concerns throughout the group that the content was at a little bit of a higher level that didn't align with our participants' cognitive or reading abilities. So we're now rerunning the group with a newer manual, or not a newer manual, to us it's newer. And so this is a modified version of Dialectical Behaviour Therapy skills training, which is adapted for special populations by Eric Dykstra and Margaret Charlton. So this was adapted by a group of clinicians at Queen's University, and they've done research on this adapted manual. And we've been using this. It is using a lot less reading and writing involved, and a lot more pictures, and more even simplifying strategies even more. And we are finding that it's a better fit for our clients. So we're currently running the group with 7 participants who have mild intellectual disability. We just finished our 8th out of 12 sessions, and all the group members have been coming consistently. So we're having more success in terms of attendance and follow through. And yeah, as I said, we're seeing an increased comprehension of material, more participation in sessions, and easier implementation of strategies in day-to-day life. And we're going to keep measuring outcomes, and we'll have another update in the future, because as we mentioned, this really is a pilot project. And part of it's assessing feasibility and how many clients are able to consistently attend and what they can get out of it. So now we have time for questions and answers. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I've already seen there's a lot coming in through the chat that I know we haven't been able to address. But I also just did want to share with you before we get to the Q&A, because I worry we'll run out of time. If you do want to contact us directly to discuss the program or outcomes further, or have any questions, or interested in doing something like this in your organization, we're always happy to chat. So feel free to email us, any of us. But yeah, maybe let's now switch to the Q&A. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Melissa. So yeah, we're now in the Q&A section of the presentation. So just a reminder to everyone, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. Just if you could put the word question in all caps before your question, it'll just help us sort through them a bit quicker. Ian, do we have any questions so far?
Yes, I think there was 2. First question was from Steve T. As a justice-involved man, this may bring up back to our feelings true, but what if those feelings cause great discomfort due to trauma? Could this cause triggers? So this was closer to the mindfulness reflection piece when you were exploring that.
Yeah, this is a really, really good question, and a valid concern, I think, for any, mindfulness or even most therapies, I would argue. So that is, and as has been noted a lot throughout the conference, a lot of our justice involved clients do have a a history of trauma. And I would argue that's the case with most of our participants too. And so that's why it's really important that we do have the one-on-one support outside of the group sessions to address these concerns and maybe get them more trauma-focused care. So we have the benefit at Surrey Place of being able to prioritize referrals for counseling for our justice-involved clients. And we have had clients like who have been triggered from some of this work and need that individual support. So we would definitely make those referrals for individual therapy and get them connected and support them until that happens.
Thank you. The next question's from Lonnie. With the new program, do you feel it would be helpful for ID that are lower functioning, individuals with intellectual disabilities?
Melissa, do you want me to take this? Or?
Go for it, Casey.
So I think this is something we talk about a lot. I think even with our clients with mild intellectual disability, I find that with most individual and group therapy, most of our clients still really benefit from having someone in the community, whether that be a parent, a family member, a support worker, who can help them generalize the skills. And, you know, we do our coaching sessions to remind them to practice their homework and whatnot. But I think having that coaching like in real time to support them when they're dysregulated is really what's needed for a lot of our clients. And so I think that it's just more of that support is needed for clients, say, with moderate intellectual disability. So I think that's our biggest challenge, is how do we actually help clients generalize the skills and use them consistently in everyday life? And I think the content, for sure, it varies session by session, but could be used with clients with moderate intellectual disability. My big, I guess, thing I'm always reflecting on is, okay, then how do we have it develop into, real life skills that are maintained?
And there's a follow-up question, and I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, so feel free to come off mute and clarify. But what it says is, this really reminds me of peers, and I'm not sure. Do you do role playing?
So, like, I'm thinking about like the peers young adult program, or I mean, they have the child program or young adult program for social skills. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah. So I have not run the peers program before, but from looking through the manual, my understanding is that that is more focused on social, like on the social skills and looking at those role plays of like how to enter conversations and like those more communicative, interactive social skills. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't run it, but this is really focused, I would say, on recognizing emotions and a lot of mindfulness exercises. There is some interpersonal pieces, but it's, I guess, a smaller component. I think I don't know enough about the peers program to answer that in a meaningful way. But I'm sure that there is, a lot of overlap in terms of teaching, managing yourself in social situations. We did some role playing, but we've also found that some of our clients had a hard time really like understanding like the role play in a more abstract sense. So we found it easier if we did the role play and then they could like comment and give feedback on that.
And then there was an earlier question at the beginning around where could we get these skills training. I do believe there were some answers in the chat from others, but curious if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, so we were having a chat about this at the start. So when we did our DBT training, we just found a DBT like skills trainer not specific to intellectual disabilities. and that was through DBT House. But then we've also hired a DBT skills trainer who came into Surrey Place and really did a lot of teaching on the Julie Brown manual. And I want to say her name was Lindsay Davies, but I would probably have to double check. So if you want to email me at casey.pulford@surreyplace.ca, I could definitely get you the name. But we didn't specifically seek out the like Julie Brown's manual training, but we did have access, like we purchased her manual and reviewed that. So we sort of adapted our existing DBT training, some other DBT training for intellectual disabilities, and then used the Julie Brown manual.
Yeah, and Marnie had a comment, it's not a question, but she'd like to commend you and all of us out working with these wonderful people and programs and finding new ways to support individuals and meet them where they're at. So I think a good recognition of all the good work done by your team and others in the province.
Thanks, we appreciate that. It seems like everyone at this conference is doing amazing work.
Feel free to add any more questions if you have any, and if not, I'll pass it back to Anne.
Thank you. Yes, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Casey and Melissa and also put them in the chat. We'll see if we have some time near the end there. But in the meantime, please join me in thanking our speakers for their great presentations and for sharing their knowledge with us. Please take a few moments to complete the evaluation. The link can be found on the session description page. If you're still logged in, you can access it through the sessions page. I'll try to link it here. Perhaps it might help folks find it faster, but you have to be logged in, I believe, in order to access it. And thank you to our speakers and everyone for your participation and insightful questions. We will now be taking a 60-minute lunch break to recharge, but we do have 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. If not, we'll end the session early. We also encourage you to use this time to connect with fellow participants, view poster presentations, or check out the several exhibitor booths. A reminder that we have some wonderful networking sessions, and please enjoy a pre-recorded mindfulness session. We mentioned it in this presentation as well. And enjoy your lunch until 1 p.m. Please join us back in the conference plenary for 1 p.m. for our keynote speaker with Carrie Gladu, Trauma, Addiction, and Transformation, the Carrie Gladu story. Last call for questions.
And I'll just share our screen with our contact information again in case anyone does have any more questions. You can email us there.
Seeing no further questions and lots of praise for the wonderful presentation.
Wonderful. Any last words, Melissa and Casey, before we end?
No, nothing to add. Thank you for having us. And yeah, if you have any questions, please reach out.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks for all the participation. It was great to have the discussion and have you respond to the mindfulness activities. So we really appreciate it.
Wonderful. And with that, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to fill out the evaluation. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Casey and Melissa. That was great. And thank you, Ian, for the question moderation.
No worries. Great job. It was great hearing your story and continue the great work.
Thanks so much.
Have a good day.
You too. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.